Hello everyone, I'm Sakina Amensour and today I'm going to talk about lactose intolerance in a more detailed way, and I hope you learn from this presentation. The interesting research question of today is how some humans became lactose intolerant. What will be answered in this presentation? The table of contents. First, I'm going to give an introduction of lactose intolerance. Then I'm going to answer the research question step by step. Last but not least, the conclusion of the research question will be given. At the end, the references will be showed and there is time for questions. Introduction of lactose intolerance. Lactose intolerance is the most common form of food intolerance that refers having different symptoms after the consumption of food containing lactose, such as cheese, milk, and other products. This occurs when lactase activity is decreased in the brush border of the small intestine mucosa. This lactase enzyme is important for the digestion of lactose into glucose and galactose. The severity of the symptoms and therefore the degree of lactose intolerance varying between these patients. Lactose intolerance and cow milk allergy are not the same, since the symptoms are slightly the same. Cow milk allergy means that someone is allergic to cow milk protein, but tolerant to lactose. Lactose is a disaccharide and is therefore an energy source for infants. As you can see here, 7% of mother breast milk contains lactose. This table contains the concentration of lactose in different mammalian species, such as humans and cows. Lactose synthesis takes place in the Golgi apparatus of mammary epithelial cells by a lactose synthase enzyme complex, where two precursors, glucose and UDP galactose, are involved. The GLUT1 and the GLUT8 are one of the glucose transporters which transport glucose into the cell. Lactose synthesis in humans is initiated during the first third of the pregnancy, increasing after birth and placenta removal. This figure shows the difference between the intestine of a lactose intolerant person and a lactose tolerant person. As shown in the left figure of a lactose intolerant intestine, there is no lactase, so the lactose is not digested. The lactose will be then broken down into gases by the microbiome in the colon. In the right figure of a lactose-tolerant intestine, the lactose is broken by the lactase into glucose and galactose. There is a normal digestion in the colon without gases. The symptoms of lactose intolerance vary between patients and are present after consuming lactose products. But what you can see in this table of research, the most common symptoms are abdominal pain, or in other words, belly pain, gut distension, and flatulence. Diarrhea, constipation, and nausea are also symptoms of being lactose intolerant. Other symptoms, for instance, are headache, muscle pain, and allergies such as eczema. The proper way to diagnose lactose intolerance, called the hydrogen breath test, and measures in the exhaled air the hydrogen produced by the intestinal microbiome after 2-hour consumption of a standard dose of lactose between 20 to 50 grams. The symptoms of lactose, such as bloating, diarrhea, and flatulence, must be also detected. This diagnosis should be performed under medical control. Another test is the lactose tolerance test, which has the same principle as this test, but measures the glucose concentration in blood instead of hydrogen in exhaled breath. Nowadays, there are so many lactose-free products on the market than a few years ago. For instance, there are soya, rice, and almond milk, which can be a replacement of cow milk. But nowadays, there is also an option to drink cow milk free of lactose. Cheese, soft cheese, and other products are also available for lactose intolerant persons. How some humans became lactose intolerant? There are 4 types of lactose intolerance. Primary lactose intolerance occurs as the amount of lactase decreases as people age, and this is the most common type. Secondary lactose intolerance is due to injury to the small intestine. Developmental lactose intolerance may occur in premature babies and usually improves over a short period of time. Congenital lactose intolerance is an extremely rare genetic disorder in which little or no lactase is made from birth. But how some people are tolerant for lactose if we answer this in a genetic perspective? This comes about in 2 ways. The first one is that some populations have developed genetic changes that resulted to ongoing lactase production. The second one is that other populations developed cooking methods like milk fermentation. Lactase persistence is the phenotype associated with autosomal dominant alleles, and conversely, lactase non-persistence is the phenotype associated with primary lactase deficiency. Lactase persistence is unique to humans and is evolved in the last 10,000 years among some populations, but the majority of people are still lactase non-persistent. The theory of lactose intolerant, what is very common back in the days, is due to Otzi, who lived 5,300 years ago. In 2012, the DNA of Otzi was analyzed and it revealed that he was lactose intolerant. Around 8,000 years ago, population in modern Turkey became dependent on domesticated animals such as sheep and cows, and this caused a higher frequency of the gene responsible for the lactase enzyme. Population that used domesticated animals which could be milked continued to be lactase persistent in areas such as North and Northwestern Europe, Scandinavia, the modern Middle East, and Northwestern India. Population that raised animals not used for milk made up the rest of the world's population. This population tend to have 90 to 100% of a lactose intolerant rate. Overall, approximately 65% of people experience some form of lactose intolerance at an older stage. But there are differences between populations and regions shown in this figure. What we know nowadays, that the percentage of lactose intolerance in Northern European 5% and in Asia 90% is. From an evolutionary perspective, some populations tolerate lactose better than others, such as the Northern Europeans. The table shows that European has a low lactose intolerance percentage and that Asians and Americans have a higher percentage. Early adoption of dairy farming is converted to an advantage for these people to tolerate lactose better. In contrast, populations from Asia, Africa, and America did not adopt dairy farming, and therefore the tolerance for milk or lactose was not developed the same way as the Europeans. In this table, the milk consumption of different populations are shown in 2011. As you can see, there is a difference in concentration between Europe and Asia milk consumption. Subsequent research revealed that lactose intolerance was more common globally than tolerance, and that the variation was due to genetic differences due to evolutionary history. Altogether, replacing milk with something else, refine lactose from milk, and reduce amount of milk product consumption is very normal nowadays. These are the references I used for this presentation. Thanks for watching, and are there any questions?